Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of the Webhead Legion podcast. I am your host, Jesse Brown, and I have with me Spider-Man experts Adam Zanobi and Michael McNulty. How are you guys?
Pretty good. Oh, greetings and Happy New Year to anyone out there.
I'd like to start by saying I hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, and I know I sure did. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Amazing Spider-Man 700. But first, I want to turn things over to Mike McNulty and give him a chance to tell us about how he first got into Spider-Man.
Okay, well, this is probably going to age me a little bit, but I first got into it back when I was a kid. Like somebody gave me a comic books of like a thing that came with it, was published by the outfit called Tower Records.
Okay.
This was on, and of course they came along. We had the actual kind of a reprint of a comic of an issue of Amazing Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
And what they did was they sold along with it a vinyl record, which ran on 45 RPM.
Hmm.
Which was like, so it had all the whole voice acting thing stuff. And the one I had, I don't think it was actually an actual issue, but it was actually specially made for this. Spider-Man versus Draco the Dragon Man.
Never heard of him.
Well, the thing is, the deal is, there's the Draco the Dragon Man. Okay, imagine the lizard,
Yeah.
only 9 feet tall, with giant bat wings, who breathes fire out of his mouth, hands, and feet.
Whoa, almost like Fin Fang Foom.
Yeah, something like that. Well, not quite as big. And the thing is, he was supposedly from outer space, from the Draco constellation, along with his army of robotic dragon people.
Weird. Wow.
And the thing is that they had the whole thing that they're going to march around and everything, invading the camp of college kids, and then the next thing it shows that J. Jonah Jameson telling Parker, you got to get photos of this guy Draco and everything like this, and of course and he's with Mary Jane, and Peter's with Mary Jane, and he shares the spider sense. He hears something in the sewers, and he tells her that, I've got to go, do some whatever BS excuse he does. And then he goes down in the sewers and he finds them and all this stuff. But the thing is, when I listened to this, I was totally hooked about this thing. And then there was another one I had, which was a reprint of the John Jameson Man-Wolf story.
Ah.
Yeah, so that was the whole. It was kind of a condensed version. They didn't have all the stuff and then of course I didn't even know anything about, because that in the context of this thing is coming right after the story involving Gwen Stacy's death.
Okay.
If you read the actual issue things, it's coming right after that point. And of course, I didn't, being too young, I didn't really know any kind of the history and stuff like that. But after that, that's when I kind of got really into the whole thing. And I used to, I was doing, finding out, getting stuff from, the local, comic shop about, trying to dig up, issues and everything like this. And so, ever since then, I was kind of getting hooked, and then and also watched the Spider-Man and the Spider-Friends type stuff and everything.
Oh, the 80s cartoon.
Yeah, the 80s cartoon. And all the reruns kind of stuff on there.
Cool.
And yeah. So, and I think I really didn't start really seriously getting into the actual comic selection probably until right around the same time as, I think when Todd McFarlane was actually doing his own his own series thing.
My favorite era.
Yeah, that was actually good times there. And also, and of course, interesting enough, it's right around the time of Maximum Carnage, so it was like, which was like, okay, and then of course, getting the robot parrots and I in the Clone Saga and all that stuff. So
yeah, the Maximum Carnage arc is the first crossover event that really got my attention as a kid. I remember the promos for it really stood out, and I was like, what's that? It's so cool, because it had a video game tie-in and everything.
Oh yeah, it was going full bore there with the whole all the characters and all the different things, like with like with the Demo Goblin coming in and stuff, which I didn't really like him, because I thought, oh gosh, none of
yeah, some really dark, scary characters.
I never liked the idea of Spider-Man fighting like supernatural villains. I kind of felt like that, or when he's fighting, that always kind of felt out of place.
Yeah.
Maybe that's another reason why I don't really particularly care for Mephisto's magical marriage annulment thing. But
yeah, I don't think any of us do.
No, I don't. Yeah. Oh, and the other thing too, I remember also getting one of these, one of those. My first action figure also was the Spider-Man in the black costume.
Ah, wow. Well, what was that from the TV series of toys, or?
No. That was like when they did the Secret Wars thing.
Oh, the Secret Wars promotion, yeah,
Yeah,
'85.
they did all that stuff. And,
I remember that Secret Wars line of toys. It was really good.
oh yeah.
I think.
Yeah, they had the little shield stuff and everything with the.
Yeah, I remember getting a Spider-Man toy around that time. It was my first ever Spider-Man toy, and I was just so fascinated by his black suit in the comics that I took a black marker and painted him black.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I think one of my, I don't know if it was my mom or aunt, they was like, how come Spider-Man looks like a bad guy now? And everything. I'm like, hey, I think he looks kind of, it kind of makes sense, he's kind of, the Spider's supposed to be wearing, kind of black and they kind of all that stuff, so.
Yeah, he's
cool
stealthy.
with it.
Right. Cool.
Do you guys still have any of those figures?
Unfortunately, I lost mine. I think mine, yeah, it was kind of like, which I know is probably, I don't know how much, I don't know what happened to it.
I have that one that I've marked up, buried somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to our central topic. It's going to be Amazing Spider-Man issue number 700. It was released December 26th, and I hope people listening to this had a chance to read it, because we're going to get into some spoilers. Adam, what was your overall impression of issue 700?
I liked it. I mean, it could, it had everything you could want in an anniversary issue of Spider-Man. Slot loaded it with, a lot of references to the character's history.
Yep.
And it was a pretty exciting, high-stakes story.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. A lot of good cameos and flashbacks.
For sure, when Peter is dying in Oc's body and he's either hallucinating or he's going to the afterlife. And he meets all the people, who have died in the comics over the course of 700 issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He has that great scene with Uncle Ben with the pep talk, and
a few of those people.
Humberto Ramos really drew that beautifully, I found.
Yeah, that was nicely
A
illustrated.
nice looking scene.
Mm-hmm. A few of those people I couldn't even recognize. I mean, I recognized, of course, Gwen and Captain Stacy and Marla Jameson, but they were introduced to his parents and.
Well, there's also Nicholas Hand, the kid who collected Spider-Man in there. He's the kid on a bike.
Oh, that's the kid who collected Spider-Man. Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
the kid who collected Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah, I have that issue.
Bike.
Cool. That was great. They put him in there.
Yeah, that was. And I don't know if there was Sally Arville was in there too or not. I don't know. It was somebody with a beret or something. That might have been Jean DeWolf.
Yeah.
I was thinking, was that Jean DeWolf?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's Jean DeWolf.
Yeah, Jean DeWolf's the one usually wearing the beret kind of thing. I think that might have been her.
Thought she was.
They've got Nathan Lebinsky in there too.
Okay, I didn't.
I saw him. Yeah, in the wheelchair.
Please.
Well, who's the? Oh, yeah, and who's? I'm trying to figure out who the guy in the shadows was. The guy that wears in the background that's got the hat and the
Good question.
You kind of can see him like he's hiding back behind in the trees or something like that.
Good question. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who that. I was like, I was trying to figure out who the heck's that supposed to be. Like, but there was that.
And there was that guy Oleski. He kind of looked like the Kingpin. I don't remember.
The Rhino.
Oh, he was the Rhino. That was the Rhino.
That to me was kind of dubious. I was like, okay, why is the Rhino? I know the Rhino's dead, but why would he? Considering all that, why would he technically be in heaven? That was like, I was a little iffy on that.
Shame on me for not recognizing the Rhino. Wow.
Well, I think he's calling him Alexi and everything.
Alexi, yeah. And I guess his girlfriend or wife.
No, his wife. Yeah, his wife is there. So.
Was that from the Flowers for Rhino?
Good side of the Rhino.
Yeah, that's the one from the
Flowers for Rhino.
Joe Kelly one, which was Joe Kelly issue. I think was 617 and 625.
Yeah. Really good
which
stuff.
was really good, which were really good issues too.
Yeah, some of the best Brand New Day stories. I found those two.
Yeah.
How about that scene with Ben Parker? What a great speech, huh? Very emotional.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you needed that in what is for the foreseeable future the last issue of Amazing Spider-Man. You needed that one last chat with Uncle Ben.
Yes, absolutely. As soon as he started talking to Uncle Ben, the spider suit magically appeared on him.
Yeah.
Before that, he was
really
wearing...
nice touches by Ramos on that one.
Mm-hmm. What were your thoughts on seeing his parents in there and what they said?
His parents? Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised to see them there. They, they were heroes in their own right, too. So, it was a nice little moment they had.
Yeah, I'm really glad Slott included them. Even though they were, they didn't go over too well in the comics when they had their time in the spotlight.
Well, yeah. It was a bit of a silly... Well, them being secret agents was a little out there, but it was a Stan Lee story, so...
It was the 60s.
You can...
James Bond was in back then, but all you still do. So, hey.
Yeah, and we won't talk about what they did with them in the 90s. We won't mention that. So, Mike, what did you think of the final battle between Doc Ock and Spider-Man?
Oh boy, do I have issues with this comic. Here's the thing. I totally understand what Dan Slott was trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. The whole thing about how, Peter, trying to redeem, Doc Ock and everything, that sometimes when being a hero is not necessarily, is not always just about fighting the bad guys. It's also trying to learn how to forgive and to try to, kind of help teach how to, to be a better person and everything like this.
Yeah.
That all being said, I didn't think it really worked.
Okay.
Because the thing is, what happened there, it just felt like he gave up. Right?
Like Peter gave up?
Yeah, like Peter just kind of gave up thing. I'm like thinking, that just doesn't seem like him. That just didn't seem like him.
Mm-hmm. And
it's just like, and the thing about that is that they, because he's lying there being broken and everything like this, and then of course you got the gold Octobot sitting there, and he somehow, and of course his life is starting to flash before his eyes.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden Doc Ock experiences as well. He just happens to be there, and he's like, oh, well, he's got basically a Wi-Fi connection to each other's heads. And at that point, it just seems like, and to me, the way it kind of came across, I don't know whether or not it was in the writing or not, but it just kind of seemed like Peter just kind of felt like, okay, I'll just kind of roll with it and let this happen, rather than it was something like he was doing, that it was active.
Yeah.
In other words, it was not like he was active. It didn't seem like he was actively doing it. It was almost like, oh, it just kind of happenstance, and then Doc Ock is just magically converted into a good guy. And I understand that it's supposed to be like he's literally experiencing Peter's life like in like a matter of seconds.
Uh-huh.
And he's experiencing all of his greatest, all the greatest hits and all the other greatest things and like that. I mean, I get that. But then it just seemed like all of a sudden he's done like a 180-degree about face, just kind of rang hollow to me.
Oh, you're talking about Ock's 180
Yeah, like yeah. Ock's like suddenly becoming now he's going to basically says, okay, because I mean the way I looked at it, the way it came across, it's like, okay, Peter, I promise I'm going to carry on your legacy, and I'm going to not make you out to look like a villain.
Yeah.
Even though I was the guy who was essentially responsible for your death, and I'm not the least bit sorry that you are dead, and I'm going to still keep on going, lying and manipulating and using all the people you care about, and I'm going to prove that I'm going to be a better Spider-Man than you in every single possible way, but don't worry, I'm a good guy now. I mean, it just seems like, really, that's kind of it just kind of seemed like a very iffy kind of beginning.
I hear you, because it happened so fast, but I didn't feel like Ock was saying, I'm going to be a good guy now.
Well, yeah. I mean, it kind of like that seemed like to be the impression that, okay, that now he's going to be the superior Spider-Man, that he's supposed to be like the hero, but there's all these little other things.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also because I read Avenging Spider-Man 15.1, which was really good, which was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And of course, in the beginning of that, you got Doc Ock going, I finally killed Spider-Man, and he just laughs like maniacally and everything. I'm like thinking,
yeah,
really?
That's more like it.
Yeah, that was an issue I had with that comic too. It seems like there was an inconsistency from the end of Amazing 700 and the beginning of.
Well, it seems to me
19.1.
like that was appropriate because
In terms of Ock's motivation.
Yeah.
It seems like it was appropriate because at the moment Ock was experiencing all that stuff that Spider-Man went through. He was very overwhelmed, emotionally. But once it's over and he's gotten past that, he can go back to being himself kind of and be like, oh, I'm still Doc Ock with an ego, and eventually he might start becoming more and more of a good guy or like Spider-Man.
I think that could be that's the approach that Slott's going to be taking Superior Spider-Man with.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the way he set it up, I think he kind of, and like I said, I understand what he's attempting. I think he kind of botched it in the execution.
Okay.
And he understood where he's trying to go with it, but the actual thing, how it actually came about, it just didn't really work. That's just just in my opinion.
Right. It was a tough sell to get that across in a couple pages that, okay, now Ock is a completely new person and better person.
Right, yeah.
But I think what he was implying is that maybe foreshadowing into the future that this will take some time, but eventually Peter's psyche will have an effect on Ock. That's what I got from it.
Yeah, you can actually see some of that happening. I mean, the fact that he's actually, that he's actually getting some of those old memories, that it's actually starting to influence him, probably more so than he cares to admit. And then maybe this is just me speculating here, but I'm kind of thinking what would happen is that, there's maybe at the end of Superior Spider-Man 1, maybe you get a moment where perhaps, Doc Ock, all of a sudden he sees Peter, and then Peter goes, and he finds out that Peter is not really there. It's only something that Doc Ock can see and hear. It's basically something that's implanted in Doc Ock's head.
Yeah.
Kind of like if you had seen Farscape, or that neural clone called Harvey, named Harvey. And it's just like it's something that Peter put in there to kind of act as a kind of almost like Jiminy Cricket. And he goes, you didn't think I was, essentially telling Doc, you didn't think I was going to let you roam around on your own, did you?
Yeah.
That would be my guess, what could be the twist of, the kind of twist that could be coming up, that could happen.
Yeah.
Because, after all, Dan Slott did say that people were going to get angry at the end of this issue, which they are, and then in Superior Spider-Man, it's like, when you see that one, you go, oh, that would be my guess. I mean, who knows, but like I said, who knows what it could be.
So, Adam, did the ending to 700 make you more or less interested in reading Spider-Man from here on?
Oh, I'm excited for the Superior Spider-Man, actually. I read a few of the preview pages that Marvel provided for the first issue. Seems like it's going to be a really cool twist on the Spider-Man mythos, so...
Yeah.
So it's going to be neat to see Ock's take on things, and we've already gotten a taste of it in Avenging Spider-Man, but I'm really liking Ock's interaction with Peter's supporting cast. There's a great scene in Avenging Spider-Man 15.1 between Ock and
what he calls
O'Grady and Uatu.
Fat Kid and what was it?
Fat Hippie and Bald.
Fat Hippie and yeah.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah, he goes, "Am I really fat?" No.
Oh.
No.
No, of course not.
Yeah. No, I'm with you, Adam. I think it's an interesting new direction. I'm usually all for shakeups. I'm excited to see how things are gonna play out between Ock and Peter's loved ones. It's gonna be really an interesting ride, a fun ride, I think.
Yeah, the only thing I kind of do wonder about is, okay, I know because there's some talk about this already about the Mary Jane angle.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That to me, I think there's some. That's kind of getting into some very sketchy waters there, I think.
Absolutely.
I don't think they're going to take it.
I know. I hope they don't either.
Well, they like to push the envelope. Well,
yeah.
They like to push the envelope. We'll see. They could get to the the verge of marriage even. Wouldn't that be interesting?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
That would be controversial.
It's just, but it's just, I think the thing is, on the one hand, yeah, you could say it's supposed to be kind of disturbing and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just kind of that is just going to be looming in the back of people's mind when you're going into this thing. Like, how far are they going to take this?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like,
it doesn't bother me, but anyway.
What were you going to say, Adam, about the whole angle?
I think in terms of how it, I mean, Slot's been obviously the subplot of Mary Jane and how she feels about Peter has been sort of percolating since Spider Island, when she admitted that she loved him, you know,
Yes,
during the climax of that scene. So I think, you know, having her finally get together with Doc Ock was a great way for Slot to sort of
Man,
pull the rug out from under readers.
that was so bittersweet because she kissed Doc Ock, and
I
that kiss was
know,
meant for Peter.
yeah.
He didn't even get to
as
say
a
goodbye.
And,
I mean, as a reader, you're sort of tearing your hair out, but,
and I'm like,
you
yeah,
know, in a
I was
good
like,
way.
oh, I was going, what are you, do you not see that this guy is like treating you like crap, or this is not how Peter would talk? I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
I was like, hey, what? He's like, leave me alone, woman, I'm busy, you know, and all that stuff. I'm like, dude, I mean, you might as well just, you know, just telling her, like, you know, get me a sandwich or something. But I mean, gee.
That brings up an interesting question. Who do you think will be the first person to realize that that's not really Peter Parker? Do you think it'll be Mary Jane?
It's got to be
Carly
Mary
Cooper.
Jane.
Yeah, I would say so
I'm
too.
thinking it's going to be Carly Cooper because
Carly.
remember, she was the one who was, you know, Peter did tell her.
Yeah,
True.
you're right. He told her.
And so now
that's
she
true.
did that, and she's going to be thinking, okay, wait, I'm thinking she's going to be going, wait a second. I remember when Doc Ock told me this thing, and then there's Peter, and now Spider-Man's acting like this, and it's like, wait a second, and so, but the way I think it could be play out, you know, is that, let's say she tried to confront Doc Ock, and Doc Ock goes, okay, well, suppose that's what you're saying is true, what are you going to do about it? Because it's your word, he says, you have no evidence, it's your word against mine, and what if you, and if you think you can go ahead and tell Mary Jane, you know, she's just going to accuse you of trying to steal away her man.
Uh-huh.
So she might know, but it kind of puts her in a bind, like she's kind of a reluctant aid to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be where Slot could be going with that.
Adam, do you have a take on that? Yeah.
No, that's definitely a direction it could go in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was anyone surprised that Kirk Connors didn't play a part in the final?
That was kind of weird. Yeah, the thing is, that was kind of like, let's recap what happened in the, No Turning Back, and just have Kirk Connors just say, by the way, just admit out of the blue, I'm not really the Lizard, I'm Kirk Connors kind of thing.
I was surprised, maybe even a little disappointed that he didn't work Kirk Connors into the plot of the finale. I was expecting Kirk Connors to have something to do with it, but no big deal.
You know, all that
He
stuff.
told Spider-Man the truth at the worst possible time,
Yeah.
and he didn't even realize it was him. I mean, I don't know, I think having the Lizard involved would have just overcomplicated things. It was
Yeah.
already a pretty jam-packed...
Yeah, he got everybody
Right.
in there. All the supporting cast. It was nice.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Carly again. That was a really intense standoff she had with Peter there.
Well, what bothered me about that scene is that Peter didn't hang around to nurse her wound. He's responsible for her getting shot in the arm. He didn't.
I think that's because also because it's implying that the Doc Ock's memories are affecting him.
Yeah.
Because he keeps saying he starts even slipping into kind of the words that Doc Ock would use.
Right, and that was a point of my review.
What am I doing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that comes across. I think that definitely comes across. I mean, because just as Doc Ock is kind of being affected by Peter's memories, Peter was being affected by Doc Ock's.
Oh, okay. So
yeah, so that's why
I wasn't sure about that, but I felt like I wasn't sure about that. That's what they were trying to imply. But because I was kind of annoyed that Peter was using, Doc Ock's vocabulary and even insulting people.
I think the idea was that it's supposed to be that he's kind of it's
transforming.
The memories are there, and it's kind of influencing him a little bit.
Is that how you felt, Adam?
Well, with regards to the Carly scene, I mean, Peter did notice that it only got her arm. So,
Yeah.
You know, he considers staying behind to help her, but let's not forget the clock is ticking. He's,
Absolutely.
he doesn't have very long to act out his plan. So as much as he hates it, I mean, I get him having to leave her behind. I mean, she was going to live, and taking the supervillains out of the picture was probably the smartest way to go, so that the authorities could help her.
It was only a flesh wound anyway, so.
Yeah, she survived.
Yeah.
She's a tough girl. Yeah. I'm interested to see how Slott keeps her around in the book, because she's less she was less important after Peter left her, after they broke up. So now he's got a reason to pull her back in and get that love triangle going again.
Yeah, I thought what Mike said before was interesting. I think she's going to be a thorn in Ock's side, so to speak, with regards to her figuring out the truth.
Yeah, definitely. Mike, do you think that perhaps the issue was too straightforward? Should there have been more surprises or developments?
I think it's just mainly the execution of it. I think it was just the way that Slott handled it, and how it just seemed kind of like everything was, kind of put in Doc Ock's favor, like way too much, to the point where even certain characters, characters were doing things because kind of the plot said so.
It was convenient for Ock at points, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there was a couple points where it seemed like, that Doc Ock doesn't just think he's a better Spider-Man, he actually is a better Spider-Man. I mean, that didn't quite sit well with me at times.
Mm-hmm. But was that Dan Slott's intention, to kind of irk the readers that way? He wanted to poke them a little?
Yeah, you can kind of say that it's definitely irksome.
Yeah.
And just trying to,
intentionally.
That's definitely the intent.
Uh-huh.
I mean, because the idea, of course, we want Peter to succeed. We want him to eventually defeat the bad guy.
Yeah.
And, the fact that he just utterly and completely failed, and, he's pretty much resigned at that point. I'm giving up being Spider-Man.
When did Ock get the time to plate his skull with adamantium or whatever?
That's the other thing. I was like,
surprise!
You just pulled that out of your. You just pulled that one out, didn't you?
That was one hell of a trump card, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, yeah, maybe he's sitting in the. Maybe he did it when he was busy in the lab, and MJ came in, and he's MJ trying to come in and says, "Hey, I'm busy, woman. I'm trying to build my carbonium adamantium plate thing in the back.
Yes.
Leave me alone."
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he has access to Horizon Labs and obviously his own equipment, so,
And in Avenging Spider-Man, he was talking about adamantium. Why didn't Peter ever make his shooters out of adamantium? So, yeah.
Couldn't afford it.
Yeah, but I'm just saying how Ock had that mindset of using adamantium. So, yeah, he could definitely get his hands on that.
Well, and also his arms, I think, at one time were actually made of adamantium.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they, at some point, I think they were destroyed, though, eventually, or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll have to look that up at some point. Adam, do you think Otto's spite of Jameson will be a theme going forward?
Otto's spite of Jameson?
Well, you know how Jameson really lashed out at Otto and the 700, and I think that had an effect on him, where he decided...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he was going to do something about that. Will there be a feud between them, you think?
Well, I mean, if you go to the near the end of the issue when when Ock clocks the Scorpion's jaw off,
yeah,
and you see that Jameson approves of this wholeheartedly, and what's funny is that, a Spider-Man who actually is a menace is a Spider-Man that Jameson can get behind, so I enjoyed the irony of that scene.
I actually liked that angle, too. I thought that was actually kind of a nice little twist. I mean, he's like, here he is, he's like, rooting for him, and all of a sudden it's like, he doesn't realize this is the same guy he just called a loser and a failure in life just hours earlier.
Yeah.
And also it's a nice twist on the whole Spider-Man dynamic about, because he's always supposed to be Spider-Man's biggest detractor, and now he's his biggest advocate, but he doesn't realize he's rooting for, who he's actually rooting for.
Yeah.
Which I thought that was actually kind of a nice, I actually thought that's kind of a nice little inversion.
It makes Jameson look like a hypocrite.
Well, he always kind of, he always kind of has that thing.
Yeah.
And I do think, the Slits kind of imply that he's now the superior Spider, that Doc I don't know how we're going to call him. Spock, I guess. I guess that's the popular nickname now.
Spock. Never heard that. That's good.
You know, Spider-Man, Doc Ock. You put SP. Yeah. Well, anyway, but you know that the idea that he's going to be working with that Jameson's going to be kind of working with Jameson or something like that, kind of like a Commissioner Gordon type thing.
Working with Jameson. Wow, that's interesting.
Working with Jameson. That the idea that, you know, because Jameson's like thinking, oh, well, this is Superior Spider-Man's my guy and everything.
But secretly, don't you think Otto would be planning revenge against Jameson? Like he really hates him.
Well, he'd probably be thinking, oh gosh, I got to work with this clown and everything. But he's just probably just be taking advantage of the opportunity and everything like this.
Sure. So there was a whole bunch of hype and promotion for 700, and obviously it's a very landmark issue. 50 years of Spider-Man, so a bunch of attention. Having said that, how well did the issue actually sell?
Okay, well, you asked me, I know you were going to ask me this. I actually have on here an article from Bloomberg Business Week on their lifestyle section, which is basically, they're talking, and mainly the article is about how different comic book companies, boost their sales.
Right.
Yes, the Amazing Spider-Man 700 has sold something like 250,000 copies in print alone.
Okay.
So that's like, 500,000, 250,000 copies there. And
Pretty
just
good.
to kind of put that in, and that's just print. And digital-wise, they haven't quite, the digital orders aren't in yet. But just to give you kind of a comparison, The Walking Dead issue 100, which is supposed to be like the best-selling title of this year, that sold 383,000 copies.
Oh, so outsold.
Well, not quite outsold, but so right as things stand, Amazing Spider-Man 700 is going
to surpass that.
It's got to be like maybe the second best selling. I don't know right now.
So,
and I think at one point, according to Rich Johnson of Bleeding Cool, he says there that when the Comixology orders, it nearly shut down the site.
Wow.
So this is pretty big. And of course also it's got how many variant covers to this thing, but otherwise I think it just
So are you saying that it was like second bestseller of the year or second bestseller of all time, or?
They have a quote here from Axel Alonso, and he's saying here that sales are phenomenal. The Amazing Spider-Man 700 has sold nearly 250,000 copies in print alone.
Yeah.
Final digital orders aren't in yet. This is the best-selling comic book at this price point of the last decade at least. Well, I don't know how many comics are, in the last decade cost up to $8.
But the real test of the story will be to see how many people actually buy Superior Spider-Man #1.
Oh, they've already got
pre-orders.
Orders, I think, of that. Yeah.
Because no doubt everybody wanted to see what happened, but to actually follow through with the story after they've read it, that will be the real test to see what people think.
Well, I think it's going to be kind of a tough sell a little bit. Because how are you going to maintain this? Because if the thing is, back during the Clone Saga, in which you're you've got a situation where, okay, here's a guy who has blonde hair, works in a coffee shop, calling himself Ben Reilly, but he's supposed to be the real Peter Parker. But the Peter Parker you always thought you knew was actually a clone, and he's off in Portland and all that other stuff. And that's here you've got a situation with Superior. It's like, okay, here's a guy who looks like Peter, who everyone addresses as Peter, who has the same memories as Peter, but it's actually Doc Ock.
Yeah.
How are you going to maintain that and everything like this? How are you going to maintain such a status quo? Which I don't think it's
a big challenge.
That's why, contrary to what Marvel says, this is going to last, be like this is going to be the status quo from now on. Doc Ock is going to be Spider-Man from here on out.
Yeah.
At least I think it's going to last at least a year, or at least up to the time the Amazing Spider-Man 2 comes out.
Yeah.
Because because there you've got Peter Parker. Once again, in that movie, it's Peter Parker as Spider-Man. So
yeah.
So you can kind of see how Marvel could time this, just in time for Peter to make his triumphant return.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, I do think we're probably going to get a good year at least.
Well, it's going to be a big challenge for Slott to keep fans interested. Not only keep fans interested, but give them enough hope to continue reading and want to continue reading. They, even though as outraged as the fans were during the Clone Saga, you have to admit that it was a success because the sales were up. Sales were high at that point.
Oh, yeah. There you've got a situation in which, who's this guy? People were kind of curious about what the mystery is. It's like, okay, who is the clone? Who is the clone? Who is the original? Everything. And I think where things started to slide is once Ben Reilly replaced Peter Parker as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I mean,
when they had that revelation.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys read the site, The Life of Reilly.
Yes, I've read that thoroughly.
Yeah, and I think they're talking to the then editor Glenn Greenberg, and he said the biggest problem that they had was even though they were successful at getting Ben Reilly to quote unquote reclaim the mantle of Spider-Man, they didn't have any real way of trying to have him reclaim the mantle of Peter Parker.
Ah, yes, good point.
Because because they couldn't do that, they couldn't have Ben Reilly interact with the classic supporting class like they wanted him to.
Yeah, I think this run of Superior Spider-Man is going to be constantly compared to the Clone Saga.
Oh yeah, well, yeah. I mean, because of because you are dealing with the substitute type thing. Because you're into very different territory. You're in different territory here.
Yeah, well, it could go longer or shorter depending on fan reaction and sales, of course.
And I mean, and then the thing is also you can kind of tell that Slott is very enthusiastic about writing Doc Ock as this idea of Doc Ock basically trying to write him as a good guy here or a potential good guy, and all the weird ramifications that could involve and how that's going to affect all the other cast members and how that's and how he's going to handle the other villains and everything, like especially like his former Sinister Six allies.
Yes, who's going to be the new leader of the Sinister Six? I think
it could be the Vulture. That's kind of, to me, make kind of sense, like, because kind of maybe they can play off an idea that Adrian Toomes and Otto Octavius, that they didn't really, they're the two senior guys, and I don't think they really got along. So you got to play on that rivalry there. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of comparing it to the Clone Saga, I mean, this certainly, I don't think, I think it's going to be easier to attract new readers to a Superior Spider-Man book. It's not quite as convoluted a concept as the Clone Saga was, It's basically just, this is Dr. Octopus, and he's in Spider-Man's body, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, most people, and if you think about new readers, most people know who Dr. Octopus is. He's Spider-Man's greatest enemy. So the notion that he's, taken over Spider-Man's life, I think is something that's going to be really intrigue, people who maybe haven't read comic books before.
And also freak them out a little bit, like, oh my god.
Yeah, but that's good. That'll, they'll buy the book, I think. They'll try it out. Interesting. I mean, I don't think it's not about, how long this is going to last, because with comic books, changes like this never last forever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's all cyclical. Peter will be back eventually. I think Slott has a story in mind that he wants to tell with Dr. Octopus's Spider-Man, and I think he does have this is just speculation on my part, but I'm sure he has a conclusion to it in mind, too.
No, I agree. I think there's going to be a big turnaround where Peter's going to get this glorious return, and people are going to be so happy and overwhelmed that Peter's finally back. And yes, it'll be a great moment.
The more interesting question is what happens to Doc Ock after, when he's not Spider-Man anymore. Does he become an anti-hero? Does he revert back to his old ways?
Yes, good question.
Does he become a vegetable? Or something like, because all his memory's gone or whatever. If Peter Parker is going to return, or if and when, the question, of course, is how would that happen? Like, how would how would that actually come about?
Right. Well, that's the question that's going to be constantly in the back of readers' minds. But for Slott, he should do as much as he can to distract them from that, and just intrigue them in the story at hand. And the better he writes it, the more people will kind of forget about that.
I think Slott is going to tease readers a lot with that, you know, hey, is Peter coming back? Maybe, maybe not. He did it a lot with the Mary Jane subplot, too, you know, will they or won't they get back together?
Right.
Really good at, you know, playing with readers' expectations and then
the thing,
throwing some curveballs.
I do kind of think that there may be some kind of little, you know, little hints maybe. I mean, you still got the gold Octobot still hanging around.
Yeah, it was never destroyed at the end of 700, so
he's got that
still has Peter's consciousness in it.
Mike, I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about your kind of sort of prediction on Pete possibly becoming Pastepot Pete coming true in 700? That almost happened.
Oh,
that was cool.
Well, you mean the thing that my idea that my facetious thing that Pastepot Pete would be the superior Spider-Man?
Yes, that Peter Parker would switch minds with Pete Pastepot Pete.
Well, I thought that I was just kind of being kind of tongue-in-cheek on that thing. I mean, I wasn't seriously thinking it was going to be him, but
yeah.
I, you know, was kind of setting it up to be like, oh, like how all these similarities he's got, you know. The thing is, actually, though, I mean, if you guys remember I did that whole Spidey speculation listing of like possible candidates.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed that. That was very well written.
Yeah, and I was actually thinking at the time, I was actually leaning toward Phil Urich.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, okay, because he's like the since he's an anti-Peter Parker, they could establish, but then the Hobgoblin story kind of killed that thing.
Yeah.
And I know I was also mentioned Harry Osborn in there.
Harry was a favorite for a while, yeah, but then the whole thing started with the 299 Spidey,
Miguel O'Hara.
Miguel O'Hara, yeah.
Which actually, yeah, which of course turns out, I think, and you know, was a big old ruse, big old, you know, red herring that Slott and.
Was that an intentional red herring that he let slip on Twitter?
Yeah, he admitted. I think if you listen to the Word Balloon podcast, he purposely admitted that he intentionally put that out there.
Wow,
and
good on his part.
And then put it out for 2 minutes to purposely throw readers off track.
Wow, he's like an octopus mastermind.
There you go. That's right. I mean,
I like the octo lenses in the mouth.
The eye stains and stuff, but
in retrospect, that was a dead giveaway.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, there was somebody who actually pointed that I actually did point that out. Yeah. I think on some other forums and everything like this. It's like, oh, that's the indication right there, and you're like, yeah. Really, you're kind of reaching it there, and you're like, oh, well, turns out it was a big old giveaway.
Ock in Spider-Man's body was my original pick, and then I got off of that once the hype started with Miguel O'Hara. But then I came back to thinking, yeah, it's definitely going to be Ock in Spider-Man's body. Mm-hmm. But it was so much fun to speculate on who Spider-Man was going to be. For a while, I was almost sure it was going to be Kane.
Oh, I thought that maybe Kane was going to be out of the picture because he's got his own, you know, he's got the Scarlet Spider.
Right, yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
It is going to be interesting to see how Kane reacts to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, considering how he's also the guy, that Kane was the guy who actually killed Doc Ock beforehand.
Yes, they have to do something with that.
Yeah,
we need a team up between those two.
But yeah, that should be an interesting throwdown if things get to when they cross paths.
One thread that I hope they pick up on.
Scarlet Spider, so it's got to happen.
Oh
eventually.
Yeah. A piece of continuity that I hope they really follow up on is that Ock was brought back to life by the Hand.
Oh yeah.
Who's
running? And that's right. And Kingpin's running it now. So.
Well, in terms of how it's significant to Ock, I mean, yeah, they resurrected him, but it's all in the past at this point.
Yeah, there's just so many great possibilities now that Ock is Spider-Man. Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap things up, and this has been a very interesting edition of the Webhead Legion podcast. Okay. And I want to thank both of you for joining me.
All right.
To all the listeners, have a happy new year. Yep. And as always, remember, with great power comes great responsibility.